Let's rock it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station. This is the podcast where we talk about spiritual magic, the law of attraction, the art of allowing, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how to best enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin. I am a teacher, tarot oracle card reader, and musician in the band Red Treasure. I'm located in beautiful, sunshine-filled North Hollywood, California.
My name is Stephanie Orlina, and I am a transformational life coach, and I help people shift away from negative thinking, and it transforms their lives. And I'm in San Diego, California.
And
I'm Kelly Worster, Dr. Kelly Worster in Maine. I'm a chiropractor and law of attraction enthusiast.
Ooh, yes. Yes, you are.
Alrighty. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you're listening to the audio version on Spotify, the Apple Podcast app, or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you so much for watching us. If you're watching us on the YouTube Co-Creation Station channel, every week here on Co-Creation Station, we start our discussion from a different jumping off point. Last week, I had the jumping off point of indicators, so we talked about that. This week, we have my sister, Dr. Kelly Worster, back again. And she created the jumping off point for this week because at the end of last week's episode, she talked about desperation. So Kelly, what did you mean when you mentioned desperation, and what does it have to do with the law of attraction?
So
say the phrase.
The phrase
that you created. Kelly created this. It's magnificent.
So it's desperation is the enemy of manifestation. So that's, I don't want to go too deep a dive right away.
That is amazing.
Totally my wheelhouse of it. It's aligned with the sympathetic nervous system, which a lot of people may be familiar with, of the fight or flight part of who we are. And Collin can talk about more of that. What do they call it? The lizard brain. Yeah. You know, that primitive part of our brains that was largely developed because of our survival how we had to survive early on as a species. So, but if you're desperate in your need for whatever it is that you want to manifest, you are essentially in a fight or flight. Desperation is a fight or flight state, and fight or flight is a restrictive energetic quality, and because we're restricted in that, it pushes out the rest. So if you think about the law of attraction and like attracts like, you don't want to be telling the universe, I don't have this. If you're desperate for it, you're saying, I don't have this and I'm desperate for it. If you have that energy behind it, then it actually pushes away. It like attracts like. If you're desperate, you're going to continue to be desperate. You're only going to attract the desperation more. Does that make sense? Is that
Absolutely.
Too deep a dive? Too soon?
No, it was perfect. It was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really powerful, I think a lot of times the words we choose to describe things are really important, and I think desperation is a great word. It's not the only way that you can that we can create resistance or fuel resistance or magnetic resistance, but it is a place where I think some of us get into. I know that I've had times financially and I think a lot of people in America have, at least in America, have had, a sense of financial desperation, and it's sort of like when you're in that place, it seems like, if you're really low on money and you're looking for a job and you need a place to live and you're sleeping on somebody's couch or something like that, it's sort of like it's way hard. It seems way harder to find a job, like you can get into this thing where you apply for jobs and you just get rejected, and it's like, what the heck is going on? Like, I need a job so badly. Why is the universe, or my understanding of my higher power, why is it keeping a job from me when it knows that I need a job so badly to survive and have a good life and everything? And I think that's, my experience of that is when I'm desperate, it's like, first of all, like you say, it's fight or flight, which one of the I'm not a psychologist, but one of the things I do know about fight or flight is it was designed in our evolution as a species to help us survive like an attack or or run away. You know, like if another tribe of cave people are coming over the hill, you know, we need to get our family out of the cave and run. If there's a saber-toothed tiger that's going to attack our cave, we need to shoot it with a wooden stick or whatever we have. And so what it does, though, one of the things that it does is it shuts down sharp intellectual thinking, and makes you really kind of dumb in a way, because it's taking the energy that you would need for like thoughtful consideration of things, and it's putting it into like the strength in your arms and your dexterity and like how well you can throw the stick and all that kind of stuff, because that's what's important in that moment. But the problem is, in modern day life, if you get into fight or flight, like most times you are experiencing that, you really need access to good, healthy, sharp thinking in that moment. And you don't have it. You're literally like, I mean, you have tunnel vision partly because of the physical state that you're in. Your brain is like, we're in trouble, so I'm going to we're going to send adrenaline to your arms and your fists and and we're going to tense you up. And it's like, that's not helpful for negotiating most modern problems. If you're on the phone with your bank, like having strong arms is not going to help you at all. But the other part of that is, if you're desperate, not only that there's that physical aspect, but it's like it becomes, Abraham talks about momentum, and you can have positive momentum, and like you feel better and better, and you can also have negative momentum where you feel lousy, and then you kind of attract a lousy experience, and you use that experience as evidence to get feeling lousier and that sort of thing. And desperation, my experience with it is that's what ends up happening. It's very difficult for me to see positive things, because I have this like kind of lens that's really looking at negative. And then when I do see negative, it's like, because I'm in this desperate state, it's like confirming it. It's like, oh God, more information that shows that it's hopeless.
Well, like attracts like, right?
Right. And so how do you get out of
it?
How do you get out of it? How do you break that pattern? Stephanie's an expert at that. He teaches people how to do that every day. So well, Stephanie, take it away. Tell them.
Well, in our last episode, Collin brought up the thing about, not like if someone doesn't like their job and all they think about is no. And Collin, I think you'll be okay with this. When you and I were working together, you were really in a state of not liking your job and your work. And so, and you would start to go on and be like, okay, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what's
okay,
their
pause.
And I was like, what's something good about it? Because I was like, well, right. Now you can afford to live where you're living. And but I remember when I asked you this, yes, I asked you this question. I was, what is it? Tell me something good about where you're working or whatever. And you said, well, there's this really pretty fountain, when I walk into the building. And so that became, I'm like, well, tell me about it. And so I just felt the shift right now. I don't know if you guys felt it. Yeah, but asking him that question started building momentum. And every session he'd talk a little bit more about it. And it was just this gentle guiding. And that's what, I say at the beginning of our podcast, I help people shift away from negative thinking, and it transforms their lives. And that's what began to happen session after session. And today, like he's had this beautiful journey of like, now he has over time created a position in his work where he's being able to be more creative. He attracted, management that is more in alignment with how he wants to be managed, and just some wonderful things came out of that particular subject of just shifting in that fountain.
Yep.
I have to say, like, I was very stuck. And again, I mentioned this last episode, but I was also convinced that it was everybody else's fault. And I think that's one of the toughest things. Joe Vitale says this in The Secret. It's like, I hate to be the guy that tells you that you attracted the car accident, but I have to be a little tough here and say, you attracted the car accident. And it's not, in saying that, I know that this is, some people who are like anti law of attraction, like that's one of their pet peeves, is like, oh, well, you're just to blame for everything. And it's not to focus on that. It's not to focus on that aspect. It's not to say like, oh, you're a bad person because you attracted a car accident. I mean, I've attracted 2 gigantic car accidents in the last few years, and it's like that doesn't make me a bad person. It's just understanding that um, the universe has a role in everything that happens, and my energy and vibration has a role in everything that happens. And so I do bear responsibility. And pretty much, if I'm having some sort of big problem in my life, there's no way you can analyze it and take my energy out of the equation. Like if I'm in something, if I've got something I can complain about to you for an hour, it's just a guarantee that I'm doing
What
something
a
in
waste
my
of
direction.
energy and time.
Or I did something. It's funny because like the second car accident I have that I had a few years back, because it was almost exactly the same accident. It's very strange. I got the same thing. I got
Is
T.
it?
It's not really strange,
Is
though.
it?
Stephanie beat me to it.
I just had a flash of
Completely
Collin.
appropriate.
I was like, did ya? I was just could totally see Collin in my face. Really?
But the funny part to me was that I was confused at first because I was like, wow, that's almost exactly the same type of accident. Somebody ran a red light. I was at an intersection. I got hit. I was in the same color, and it was a different year, but it was the same make, model, and color car. And I got hit almost in exactly the same way from the different side, but almost exactly the same way. And it was a distracted driver. It was the same thing.
Okay, so we're gonna switch this subject because
Yeah.
you keep bringing that up. And
No,
I'm like,
Well, the thing I was confused about was the first accident that I'd had years before made sense to me from a law of attraction standpoint because I knew for a year I had been thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have an
hey,
accident.
baby, it
But
didn't change.
I hadn't been thinking that between the first accident and the second accident. And my personal take on it is, yeah, but 2 things. One, I was thinking that so hard for so long that it's possible that I generated both of them, in that first year. But the other thing is that what came out of the second accident was an opportunity for me to see, because I reacted to the second one very differently. Like the first one very much disrupted my life. I had a minor injury. It was a mess. Like that messed up my life. The second one, I was in a better place with who I was. I actually didn't get injured at all. In fact, there was another vehicle that also got hit. They had 2 occupants in their car. They weren't injured at all.
Yeah.
I got my replacement car, which I had to do again, much more easily. So I mean, it was a way.
There was a vibrational shift then.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
So a couple things I want to say is taking our power back. Like Abraham, I've heard Abraham say this of like Esther. Esther got to a point where she was like, oh, I created that thing I don't like. Oh, I created that thing I do like. Oh, taking responsibility for my vibration, for my energy, for my thoughts, for my, how I show up. And then I love Deepak Chopra. He said, after I heard him speak for like an hour and a half one evening, and at the very end, he said, let it begin with you. And so kind of going back to what you were saying, Collin, is like, oh, I have a part in that because of how I show up with my thinking, with my energy, with my actions, with my words. And so it's like, yeah, let's take our power back. Like, oh, my life, most of my life is the way it is because of how I've shown up and what I've thought and the actions I take and the words I say. And it's like, how cool is that we, each and every one of us, has the power to make our life a little bit better or a little bit worse, a little bit better. And so that's what we're here about, right? I love our intro. I mean, you created it, Collin, and it's like the magic of life. It's like, okay, how can we, and so, yeah, we need to let it out, if we're upset or bothered or whatever. I did this earlier where I just noticed I was reading a book, but my alarm went off and it was like, I instantly went into anxiety because I thought I had plenty of time to get ready. But when that alarm went off, I was like, I don't have enough time to get, and I instantly felt stressed, and I need to journal. And I didn't know that was happening at the time. But when I started going, I feel stressed. And I was like, but I was reading that book and it was a cool book. I like that book. And then it was like, oh, because that alarm went off. And in my head, it was like, I don't have enough time to get ready. I thought I had plenty of time. So
Yeah. And I remember when we were doing our work together, Stephanie, and I would be talking about, what was real for me in the day. At the time I was working with you, my life was extremely challenging on an hour-to-hour basis. And then you were like, what do you like about your apartment? And I'm like, what the hell is she talking about?
She's nuts.
Didn't you say you just got a new couch? I'm like, yes. And she said, talk about your couch. And I'm like, it's a sectional. Like, what are we doing? And of course, I didn't say that to Stephanie. In my head, I'm just like, what is
Well,
going on
because you had
here?
told me, I bought a couch and I love it. And I was like,
Yeah.
because we don't do that, right? We
And
don't
she
do
and
that
she
as a
latched onto
norm.
that, and she knew that would, because that's how it goes. It's like, get out the emotion, talk about, what's going on, be
Yeah, what's
factual
bugging
about what's
us.
going on,
Yeah.
feel the feelings. And then, that there is this place where I'm getting better and better at it, not perfect by any stretch, but then there's this place where I'm like, okay, I can either turn the ship around, or I can pick out furniture and carpeting and stay here in the muck and,
And
really, really about face. And what do? I put on 80s music and I blast 80s music and dance around. I think about, I go and I snuggle my cat, and working with Stephanie, she gave me a list of, here are the things that you talk about that you love. And so this is the go-to list when you want to feel good, when you're ready to about face and course correct. This is what you go to. This is what's going on. This is what's feels good in your life. So go there. So I think that's the key for me as far as getting out of desperation. And also, like we talked about a little bit on the last episode, perfect what's going on right now as much as you can. Make it perfect, because that's what's going to help. If especially if it's for me, if it's a physical, making it perfect, that can really help.
Can you explain that though, Kelly, what you mean? Because I feel like it's
Yeah.
for someone who wasn't, following you 100%. It's like, oh, I have to be perfect. Like, would
No. So the law, one of the laws of attraction that I found, I guess it's a principle of the law of attraction, is the present is always perfect. So perfect your current situation. So Collin, you were talking about, your job and how things were very challenging with this one coworker, and you changed the way you interacted with this coworker, and that was perfecting your current situation. And in doing that, things transformed beyond your wildest dreams or expectations. So in the example that I found was, the employee who is happy in the work will be more attractive to prospective employees if they're trying to find another job. So be as happy as you can, be as content as you can. But then there's that challenge of keeping that vision of what you want, that desire that you have, the demand that you put upon the universe, keeping that right up front and center, whether that means,
that works
having,
both ways, Kel. That works both ways.
what do
If
you mean?
well, if thinking about what I want in a job feels good, then think about it. Talk about why I want it, what I want and why I want it. But if
Yeah.
thinking about that perfect job causes resistance, like I don't know how to do it, I don't, the list is, rampant. We never have to think about something again and have it manifest.
Right.
Because when we ask, it is given. It's energetically put into our vortex. It's being held there. Our higher self, inner being, whatever you want to call about it, God, whatever, is focused 100% on that thing and law of attraction and responding to it. So it exists energetically. It's done. The only holdout is me. And whether I believe it, whether I doubt it, whether I resist, whatever. And so I've had things where I know we all have never thought about it again. There was one thing I've talked about it his before. I never even said I wanted. I just thought it. And then within the week I was holding it in my hand and I was blown away. So we can do either. We can stay focused, like for the hot tub and the deck I wanted. Every morning when I was doing my meditation, I would visualize it. I'd feel the warm water on my body, plush towels, and then eventually it came about, and I
Mm-hmm.
was, and then so it just depends. Pay attention. How does it feel?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So think about if it feels good. And when I feel bad, I have no business thinking about my vision. When I feel
Yeah.
bad, I
Amen.
need
Yeah.
to, call a friend, pet my neighbor's cat, go listen to music, take a nap,
Mm-hmm.
get out in nature, whatever it may be, just to soothe myself. But when I'm feeling good, that's the time for me to think about what it is I want and why,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
imagine having it.
Yep.
I think we've. I mean, I'm going even further off the topic of desperation that we started with, but um, one thing that's amazing to me about the law of attraction and the art of allowing is because I remember hearing the story as a kid of Aladdin and the magic lamp that most people have heard, where the genie comes out of the lamp and grants three wishes.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember as a kid being like, wow, it sucks that there's only three. Like, it feels like the whole conflict and everything in the original story. I know the Disney movie took it all sorts of different directions, but the original Child's Tale that I heard, like the conflict that Aladdin felt was like, gosh, that's amazing, but I have to pick like at this the genie's doing two things for me, opening up all possibilities for all time. It's like basically I'm almost like God, but I can only be God three times, so I have to pick like so incredibly carefully because these better be the things I most want, you know. And then there's been tons of like funny TV commercials and stuff for years where like somebody accidentally, the genie comes up and they say something that accidentally includes "I wanted whatever," and the genie's like, "Oh, that's two," and they're like, "No." So, but the thing that I remember thinking as a kid of like, it would be so great. I mean, this is a very little kid thought because we haven't been fully programmed by adult culture yet. Is like, oh, it'd be great if there were more than three wishes. And then I remember watching The Secret, and James Ray says that number one, the
Mm.
original story, all the way back in the actual lore, had unlimited wishes. Like the three wishes things was a change that happened
Mm.
in the Renaissance.
Some deprivation human was like, no,
Yeah.
you only have three.
Humans messed with it. Yep.
Yep.
But if you think about that like you have a lamp and a genie and you have unlimited wishes. Like that's actually how the universe works. That's how human life
Yep.
works.
Yep.
Like that's amazing.
We're done.
The only thing that's in the way, yeah, seriously, the only thing that's in the way, and that was the thing where that I got. There was something that I was a little messed up on from watching The Secret that Abraham helped me understand. Because I think The Secret, when they talk about the three-step process of the art of, they're talking. They don't say art of allowing, but that's what they're talking about, which is ask. It's like visualize and receive, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Believe
And
and receive.
ask, believe, and receive, right? And that sort of sets it up of like all three things. Like number one, none of them have happened yet, so you have to do all three from now, and all three are up to me. And what Abraham really helped me with is that step one has already happened. And Stephanie says this all the time. Like, if I see that car and my heart knows that that's the car that I really want to be in, like the ask has already happened in that moment. I don't have to go home and, like you're saying, I don't have to write out on a piece of paper and make sure I get it in the right ink and size or whatever. Like, I want this car. Like my heart, which is really just instantly connected to higher power of the universe,
Yeah, energetically, it was like,
already asked for it. Already
yeah,
asked for it.
yeah.
And step two is really not best understood as me believing. Step two is really like the universe actually already created it. Like the moment I noticed it, the universe was always like already kind of like, yeah, we knew you would wanted that. That's kind of why we showed it to you. And now that you know you want it, we've totally gotten it for you. So steps one and two, like the moment you're even aware of it, steps one and two have
They're
already
like
been
that.
done.
Mm.
Step three, which is just, it's not that the secret's wrong, but I just feel like that, oh, receive, like it's just deceptive in the sense that it really should be easy and it can be that easy. But if you've been raised in our culture where we tell you that life is not like Aladdin's lamp, and there's no genies, and nothing comes from just wishing for it, and you have to go out and you have to use your ego and control things and wrestle them into existence,
Yeah.
and that's the only way, and only people who do that the hardest and the best and the longest get what they want, and if you're not willing to do that, you'll never get the life you want, and all that kind of stuff. If you grow up in that culture, which we all have, and the media and teachers and religious people and just everybody, politicians, everybody's reinforcing that message all the time, step 3 receive becomes very challenging, because you've got to get past all of that programming,
Yeah.
plus all the stuff we've talked about in your brain of like, the brain is set up to look for problems, dangers, and threats, not Aladdin's lamp or the genie or anything like that. That's why step 3 is really tricky. But if you think about it, like, if steps 1 and 2 are already done and life is like Aladdin's lamp, why wouldn't you practice this? You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
why
and
would you
step
practice?
3 is really fun because the art of allowing is like anything that helps you feel a little bit better. So
Mm,
how sweet is this gig? Like this situation that spirit, God, the universe has set up for us is like we just ask naturally, whether
Yeah.
it's, our life sets it up that, we're asking all the time, whether we realize or not. Um, it's in the step 2 is like spirit's like, yep, it's done, we got it. And step 3 is like, oh, just feel a little bit better, just do those things that help you feel better. Appreciation
mhm,
is super powerful. And I was like, oh man, how cool is that? But we haven't been taught that. Like, something Flora Scovel-Shintag says is like, we have been educated to believe in appearances.
mhm.
We have
Right.
not been educated in the law of attraction and the art of allowing. And so
Mhm,
that's why we're here, is because I need to learn more and more. And you said this, I think, in an earlier or in this podcast, Kelly, about, oh, and I don't do it perfectly. And it's like, none of us do. This is
mhm,
about doing it progress, not perfection, right?
mhm.
Perfectly
Yep.
imperfect, but just like, okay, I need to like keep doing this one day at a time to the best of my ability because I forget. That lizard brain comes in, or I've got like
Mhm,
50 some years of resistant thoughts that I've learned from him, her, and they. And it's like, oh, I need to, this is a daily practice. It is a practice.
What
I
fascinates
have this great, hold on, Colin. I have this great in this vein, this paragraph from Florence Scovel-Shinn, Power of the Spoken Word. She uses the word God, but spirit, universe. Trusting God is like walking a slack wire. Doubt and fear cause you to lose your balance and fall off into lack and limitation. Like the circus performer, it takes practice. No matter how many times you fail, try it again. Soon you will acquire the habit of poise and balance. Then the world is yours. You will walk joyfully into your kingdom. The circus performers all seem to love their work, no matter how difficult. The band plays, the people applaud, and they smile. But remember, they were trained without the music and applause.
Whoa. Dude,
Right?
that is badass. Okay, that's in which of her books?
That is in The Power of the Spoken Word.
Oh, spoken word. And what page?
That's, well, it's page 195, but I have the Florence Scovel-Shinn Reader
Oh,
book.
okay, so it might be. Okay. All
Why
right.
is it fuzzy? Because of my blur. Yeah. So it's it's a book of her collected work. So it's not
Yes.
the,
Yeah.
the actual
Okay.
book, but it says free from worry and fear. We ask with thanksgiving and our good is given to us.
Mm, that is
Beautiful.
awesome. Thank you.
That's amazing. One thing I want to mention though is what's something that's fascinating to me, because the don't be moved by appearances, don't be fooled by appearances,
Yeah,
is
that's a
so.
tough one.
So what's actually interesting to me, and I'm sure I do this too, but it's just easier to see it in other people, because I'm not attached, is how the appearance actually demonstrates the possibility, and someone's thinking rearranges the appearance in their own mind so that it appears like the lack of it. And the example that I have of that is I was watching on the Oprah network years ago. I was watching her, what was it, Super Soul Sunday or something?
Yeah, yeah.
and she has like, usually it's a celebrity of some sort, you know. She has musicians, actors. She's had Deepak Chopra on. I mean, and she looks at their life and they tell stories about their life, and it's designed to like get some wisdom out of whatever. And she had John Bon Jovi, the rock musician,
Yay.
on there
That's
once,
fun.
and he told this story, and I'm like, God, this is such a great story.
Mm.
He was out. He was one time. He was at home. This is fairly recently. So I saw this program in 2012, and he was telling the story as if it had happened in the last couple of years. So this is not back in the 80s. This is like he's had his whole career. He's super famous. He's super rich. So he's at his mansion in New Jersey, and he is in his driveway, which is apparently quite long and circuitous, and he's washing his Porsche, I think, which is one thing he likes to do to like relax and you know whatever. And somebody from the neighborhood comes over and tells him, and he's expecting validation from John Bon Jovi in this story, which is the weirdest thing, but it demonstrates what I'm talking about. Is so this guy was a dad of a teenage boy, and the teenage boy told his dad that he wanted to learn bass guitar because he wanted to be a rock musician when he grew up. And the father told him that he was never going to buy him a bass guitar, and he was not allowed to learn or play it because he had to do something responsible to make sure that he would earn a living when he grew up. And the father was super proud of this at this time, and he was bragging to John Bon Jovi about that he had done this, expecting validation from John Bon Jovi. And John Bon Jovi is literally, I love the way he tells the story. He's like, I have the cloth, the hood of my Porsche that I bought with the money from playing and the guitar, you know? And he's like, it blew me away. He's like, and I asked the guy, he's like, do you understand how I paid for that? You know? But it's like, that's the thing, like the and this gets me all the time. I live in LA, and you know, I have many friends who I love dearly who are actors. I lived in New York City for a long time. I have lots of musician friends, lots of actor friends, and a lot of them don't do this, so I'm not throwing them all under the bus. But I also do hear people talk to me about how, oh my gosh, when I lived in New York City, I used to hear it all the time at gigs. Like musicians would come up to me and tell me, like they're trying to prove to me, like, yeah, we're rock musicians in New York City. We can't ever make any money. And
A belief they have.
I believe, which got to this extent. There is now a very famous band called Vampire Weekend. They've been huge for a long time. They play Saturday Night Live, you know, all that. They're from New York City. I think the whole group, they were students together at Columbia, but they were in New York City. And I had a friend who was in a band who I hope is not watching this. I'm not going to name her, but I am going to throw her under the bus. Just for one thing. She's a wonderful person. But she told me, and so we played a gig with my friend's band, this other band we were friends with, and Vampire Weekend had just blown up. They just played Saturday Night Live for the first time. And they like blew up. Like it was like they are now nationally famous. They're gonna go on a national headlining tour. Like they have, at least at this stage, made it, right? And like 4 weeks before, the band we were friends with had played a show with them at this little club, just like we were playing shows at the little club. And I was having this conversation with my friend, and she was like, have you heard of Vampire Weekend? And I said, yeah, I didn't see the show, but I heard that they were on Saturday Night Live and they killed it, and now they're a big deal. And I did hear that they were from New York. I had never seen them, but you know, there's 10 million bands in New York, so that's not unusual. And she goes, yeah, we did a show with them 4 weeks ago. And she said they were like us, like it was a 4-band show, and like we had 50 people, and it was us. And I got so excited because I had studied a little bit about I'd seen The Secret at that point, and I was like, well, that's amazing, because that means if you were there, that means you could do that.
And they were in the energy of, right?
And this friend of mine worked very hard to convince me that because they had played the show with Vampire Weekend, and it was Vampire Weekend that got on Saturday Night Live, that was the evidence that her band, and as she was saying,
Wow.
which I did not agree with, but us, we were never going to make it because there was one slot for fame and glory. Vampire Weekend got it.
Got it, yeah.
We're all out of luck.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not. I feel like that commercial where they make the old ladies talk about Facebook. They're like, that's not how this works. That's not how this works.
Yeah. But don't we all think that to a certain
Yes.
degree?
Yeah.
We
Oh,
have
yeah.
with something in our lives, like, oh,
Yeah.
she can have that, but not me.
Well, if an ex-boyfriend gets married,
Ugh,
that
right?
was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You know, I guess I'm not getting married. It's like, what the hell? What does it have to do with anything?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing that gets me about that is there is this aspect of like, don't be fooled by appearances. Like if you're in a band and you haven't made it for a few years, yeah, don't be fooled by that. But also, when the universe shows you that you and your band can make it, don't flip that into we can't. Because that's not the universe showing you can't. That's the universe showing you absolutely can.
Well, and it goes to
That's you.
show
You're
the whole
thinking.
thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Our thoughts matter. Like,
It's just so weird to me, and I was nowhere near as like versed in this stuff as I am now, but it was just so weird to me. I was like, it's so clear. Like, if you did a show with them and you had as many fans with them 4 weeks ago, then you're on the path that they are on. Like,
yeah,
we're
they
on the
were
right path.
they were an indicator of what's possible.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yep.
But I think she, and again, I don't mean to throw this person under the bus, but we started off talking about desperation, and I think a lot of artistic people, who make a sacrifice and they move to New York City or they move to LA or they move to Nashville and they pursue their dream. It's not, I don't want to blame them. It's not really their fault, again, because I feel like our culture sort of raises you this way, but they start out with this sort of desperate mentality. Like the odds are 1 in a bajillion, and that effectively means it's 0, and so you're going to struggle and you're not going to make any money, and then at the end of whenever you decide to quit, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, you're going to have to move back to wherever you're from and, as a failure and do some job you hate and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, none of that has happened yet. And yet so many artistic people start out with that kind of like, I kind of know that's going to happen. And it's like, if that's the desperate sort of belief you have, then it's like, that's going to mess up how you see things, how you pursue things,
And that's the resistance. Like, I want it, but.
Yeah.
And so that's why it never comes about, because I just stay in this spot of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And I'm the only one that's stopping me from having anything I want.
Yeah.
Just as I'm the only one allowing me to have anything I want. So.
And how do we, and I'm sure this is part of your mission with this podcast, is like, how do we spread the word? Because there are so many people that don't have the first clue that this is a thing.
Yeah.
And how do we start to talk about it, and how do you build the bridge there? And that'd be fun to explore.
I think I'm going to let Stephanie talk, but
No, go ahead.
I think we're close to the end of the episode here, but it's funny because I don't know if you noticed, but I edited out of our intro both last week and this week the whole thing that I usually say about if you feel called to like this episode, if you feel called to subscribe to us or whatever. And the reason that I cut it out, and by the way, I didn't talk about this with Stephanie at all. I just in my infinite wisdom, I just did this. But the thing is like I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube, and it's like everybody says that at the beginning of every video and the end of every video, and most people are much more garish about like they have graphics and they're like showing
subscribe.
Yeah, and I'm just like, man, it wears me out, and like I feel like I don't want to wear people out. But it's interesting because I think the thing that I didn't really think through is like that is how someone who's listening to this or someone who's watching this can actually help get the word.
That's true.
Is like actually live in a time, again, to talk about the Aladdin lamp, how things they're easy if you let them be. Like literally nobody knows exactly how, for example, YouTube's algorithm works, but what we do know is that when you subscribe and when you like a video, that does put it in more people's feed potentially. And And so I don't know, but I would love to come up with a different way to say it, because right now I'm saying it I didn't say it these last 2 episodes, but I wish I could find a way to say it in a way that, you know, communicates what we just came to, which is, you know, if you're listening to this, it's awesome, but you have this gift of knowing that we have the Aladdin's lamp and there's no limit on the wishes, and the way you can help other people find that out is
I think you just did it.
or follow.
I think you just did
Yep.
it. Yeah, you did it right
Yep.
there. Awesome.
Cool.
Yay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much if you listen to the audio version, and thank you so much for watching if you watched us on the YouTube Co-Creation Station channel. We are so grateful for the people who watch and listen every week. We couldn't do this without you, so thank you so much. Stephanie, if people want to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
My website, www.powerinjoy, powerinjoy.com. And I have a free 30-minute discovery session. I'd love to chat with you. Find out what you're needing and wanting.
Do it.
Thank you, Kelly.
Shameless plug right there. And Dr. Kelly, how can people get in touch with you?
Best way is through Facebook. It's Dr. Kelly Maine. So DrKellyMaine.
Is it still called Facebook?
Yes.
Okay. I know they changed the company name to Meta.
Yeah. Yeah.
The best way to get in touch with me is you can follow me on Instagram. You can also write me a direct message if you like. I'm at Collin with 2 L's _Daniels, how it sounds, _Worster, WORSTER. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We wish you a happy, successful, and prosperity-filled week, and we will see you next time on Co-Creation Station.